In this video, we are going to discuss how you can score better in your CS exams by using the legal maxims in your answers. The maxim that we have selected for today is pro rata. What does pro rata mean? Pro rata means in proportion. Whenever you have to divide or allocate something between various parties, individuals, the basis of determination will be a certain rate, percentage, or share. This is known as pro rata. So, something that is divided according to a particular rate, proportion, or allowance. So, pro rata is nothing but a phrase that describes the division which is made according to percentage, rate, or a share. So, it is a concept whereby you use this method to divide or allocate something among various parties on the basis of a particular share, percentage, or rate. Let's have a look at the explanation for better understanding. Pro rata means a share to be received or an amount to be paid. So it is applicable in both the cases where you have to receive a particular sum of amount or where you have to pay it. But how will you determine what amount has to be received or what amount has to be paid in a particular circumstance? That will be determined on the basis of fractional share. Of what? Which share are you taking into consideration? The share of ownership, the share of responsibility, or the share of time used? That is, the duration of time you have used a particular thing will determine how much amount you have to receive or how much amount you have to pay. So this is known as the concept of pro rata. Let's take an example to understand this better. Suppose there is a property that has been rented for 11 months. Now, during the duration of these 11 months, who is eligible to pay the electricity bill? The tenant will be eligible to pay the electricity bill as per the agreement for the duration of 11 months since he has used the property for the period of 11 months. However, the owner cannot insist that the tenant pays for 12 months. Since the duration of time used is only 11 months, he will be liable to pay the electricity bill for 11 months. Now, let's take an example for ownership. Suppose there is a property A that has two owners. One is X and another is Y. X is the owner of 60% of the entire estate and 40% is owned by Y. Now, when the question of payment of property tax of this particular estate or property comes into question, how will you determine which of the parties will pay how much property tax? So, the question is on the basis of a particular percentage, that is the percentage of ownership in this particular case. So X will pay 60% of the entire property tax and the remaining 40% will be paid by Y. So this is known as the concept of pro rata, whereby something is allocated or divided among individuals or parties on the basis of a particular rate or percentage. So in simple terms, it means a process where whatever is being allocated will be distributed in equal proportions so that there is no inequality. So in this instant case of ownership, if you take into consideration the payment of property tax, if X says that both shall pay 50-50% of the entire property tax, so that will be an inequality towards Y wherein he will have to pay extra amount. So to avoid this, there is a concept of pro rata. According to the portion or proportion of your ownership, you will be required to pay the property tax. The language of origin is Latin. Let's have a look at certain examples to understand this concept better and how you can use this term pro rata in your exams. Let's consider example number 1. A creditor of an insolvent estate is to be paid pro rata with other creditors of the same class. Right? So, this is also explained where we explain the concept of pari passu, wherein a creditor of the same class shall be ranked pari passu with other creditors, or they shall be ranked equally or on equal footing. That is to say that whenever a company goes into liquidation or is winding up or is in the process of insolvency, then the amount of debt that the company pays back to its creditors should be paid on pro rata basis. That means to say, one creditor should not be given preference over the other creditor, and one paid more and the other paid less. That is invalid and not in favor of the one of the creditors. So in such case, the creditors of the same class should be always paid pro rata. For example, the company A has two creditors, X and Y. Company owes X rupees 100, whereas it owes Y 200 rupees. Now, during the insolvency process, what amount of debt will X pay back to Y and pay back to X in this instant case? So, the company cannot favor one creditor and say, I will pay full amount to X and not pay anything to Y. That is detrimental to the interest of the creditor Y. So, in this case, the concept of pro rata is applied and a particular percentage on the basis of the availability of funds is fixed for the clearance of debts. So the company says, for example, that we will clear 50% of debts of all the creditors. So in this instant case, if you are considering the rate as 50%, A will pay back 50 rupees to X and will pay back 100 rupees to Y. So the pro rata is on the basis of a percentage of availability of, which is determined on the basis of availability of funds, and on pro rata basis equal proportion of debt is cleared for all the creditors of the same class. So this is an example for pro rata. Let's consider example number 2. An heir who receives 1/4 of an estate may be responsible for only 1/4 of the estate taxes on his pro rata share. This has already been explained in the previous slide where we determined percentage on the basis of ownership. In this instant case, an individual receives quarter of the entire property estate, so he will be liable to pay only quarter of the entire property taxes on the basis of his pro rata ownership or pro rata shares. Let's have a look at example number 3. This example is from company law. A company which issues 60,000 shares but receives application for 2,40,000 shares. So they've made application only for 60,000, but in excess they've received application for 2,40,000 shares. In such cases, the company will always use the pro rata basis for allotment, which is known as pro rata allotment. What does this mean to say? When the company has determined it is going to issue only 60,000 shares, but it receives application for shares amounting to 2,40,000, then in that case, how will the company determine which applicant will get how many shares? So in that case, a particular percentage is decided and fixed on the basis of the ratio of issue and the number of applications received. On the basis of that, it will be determined. So in this instant case, the applicants have been allotted 25% of the shares applied. So for example, if there is an application which is applied for 100 shares, in that case the applicant will receive only 25 shares. So on, if there is an application for 500 shares, the applicant will receive only 125 shares, that is 25% of the total application made. So similarly, in other words, applicants for 100 shares will be allotted 25 shares, application of 500 shares, 125 shares will be allotted, and where there is an application for 1000 shares, only 250 shares would be allotted. So this is known as pro rata allotment, that is on the basis of a particular fixed percentage, the applications will be accepted, and on the basis of the percentage, allotment will be made to issue the shares. This is a concept of pro rata allotment. So pro rata allotment is nothing but allotment or division according to a particular percentage or share, so that equality is maintained and no party is treated unequally, that they are paid on a particular proportion, rate and allowance. This is the concept of pro rata.
If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can check for the other legal maxims in the description below. And yeah, please let us know in the comments box if you understood the legal maxim. See you in the next video with another legal maxim.